takes a different sort of look at research. If we were to provide you with the resources and the connections in other cities, would it not be a better thing to go to those cities who've already taken down their elevated highway and see if their studies came true or did not come true? If they said it was 3 minutes more or 5 minutes more, and in fact it's all turned out to be a moot point, would that not be a better thing to research?
Absolutely, and if that's an offer, I accept.
We'll just see about that. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Any other visiting councillors with questions? Nope. Bringing it into committee. PWIC committee members, any questions? All right. Thank you very much, John. That was great. And our next deputant is Jude MacDonald, followed by Kathy MacDonald. Siblings, maybe?
No, different spellings. It's all Scottish. Hi, my name's Jude MacDonald, and I'm a resident of Ward 28. I'm blessed to live in the St. Lawrence neighbourhood at Sherbourne and the Esplanade, so we're talking about my neighbourhood here. It's an inspiring community made possible in part thanks to a mayor and council who showed foresight. We're going to have an honest discussion about the possibility for some radical solutions. I think far too often we reject things before we open up our minds to consider them. And I've changed my mind on the Gardiner, in that I thought before that we just couldn't afford to sort of really look at the widest ranges of options, including tearing it down. And I'm now thinking to myself, if we're thinking ahead, I have 2 grandchildren now, and I'm thinking ahead to their life in the city. Then wouldn't you take an honest look at tearing it down, even if the cost is huge? Say to yourself that it is an investment we're going to make. Something that is going to make us a much greater city, and it's going to make transportation generally to be improved. Those were some thoughts by then citizen John Tory in 2013.
But I've changed my mind about the Gardiner in that I thought before we just couldn't afford to sort of really look at the widest range of options, including tearing it down, burying it, and things like that. And I'm now thinking to myself, if we're thinking ahead, I have 2 grandchildren now, and I'm thinking ahead to their life in this city, which I think of, by the way, as the greatest place in the world in which to live, notwithstanding our flaws, then wouldn't you take an honest look at tearing it down or burying it or whatever, and even if the cost is huge, you'd say to yourself, it's an investment we're going to make in something that's going to make this a much greater city and is going to allow transportation generally to be improved.
Thing is, tearing down the Gardiner east of Jarvis is the most affordable option. It is the option that best complements the hundreds of hours volunteers, city staff, and publicly paid experts have put into the plans for the Portlands and other emerging neighbourhoods clustered on our water's edge between Jarvis and the Don River. We could spend hundreds of millions of dollars more for a lesser version of the status quo, but it won't change a simple fact. Vehicular traffic on the Gardiner is at capacity. Spending millions of dollars to keep up this section of the expressway is, by definition, simply going on with the way things are with traffic. Moving a couple of ramps to the west won't change that. In 2013, citizen John Tory had it right. This city is desperate for more transit. It also has finite resources. It's already committed to investing in a 3-stop subway extension, which will no doubt have some fiscal surprises as EAs come up, complications are discovered, and additional costs inevitably occur. Residents learned that Union Station improvements went over budget, Nathan Phillips Square renewal over budget, Spadina subway extension over budget. We've learned of unexpected city costs for Metrolinx up Express. It feels like this city is hemorrhaging money. Promises to stop this cycle won't cure the tight squeeze we are already locked in. With the Remove alternative, we can stanch the flow, and the city can directly benefit from the local area's renewal. Remove benefits several emerging neighbourhoods as well as the Unilever site, rather than privileging one developer's needs to the detriment of a vision that this city just spent years hard to keep a hold of. Here we are at this historic moment in time. Let's take an honest look at tearing down this small portion of the Gardiner at not doubling down on a costly infrastructure that does damage to the city's unprecedented, globally significant effort at urban renewal. Perhaps at the cost of 2 or 3 minutes for some of the 3% of weekday commuters who would otherwise take the Gardiner East at the peak time for the morning rush. Though I would suggest the Council should really look at delays and flooding on the Don Valley Parkway, which will only get worse, regardless of this decision. Council should look at improving transit to provide meaningful relief for the majority of people who will increasingly need buses, LRTs, streetcars, and yes, subways to get around this city. We desperately need safe, dedicated bike lanes. We need pedestrian-friendly streets. We need accessibility throughout Toronto and are shamefully behind. Maintaining the current status quo is no way to build a city that is ready for what the future brings. Our children and grandchildren can thank us for our courage or curse us for a sickly white elephant that will lie at the foot of a renaturalized river, getting in the way of a glorious entry point to the lake. For too long, we've been a city built against that lake. We have turned our back on a wonder. We made a big mistake at Harbourfront and in building the elevated expressway in the first place. But we had learned lessons from those past mistakes. We've been turning things around. Let's not go back to being a city built against Lower Don Lands, Keating Channel, Villiers Island, and the mouth of the Don River. In short, removal, removal, removal. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions of the deputant from outside visiting interloping councillors?
I could talk about a pedestrian experience, for example.
All right, sorry. Questions from Councillor Carroll.
I'll ask the same question I've been asking because I know you're a resident in that area. One of the biggest arguments here is that we're missing a chance of unlocking 5 million square feet of development. So the CAA report says economic development is possible through the hybrid. The city report says it's possible through both, that they're the same, if not better, with removal. That economic development comes as a resident in and around this area. Are you ready to welcome?
Yeah, I know the council often deals with NIMBY, but I think you've got down there. We had a big fight about these Portlands. You saw what residents thought, not just in that area, but across this city. We want development here. We've fought for development here. We've spent a decade going to public processes, being involved with committees, meeting regularly to develop this in consultation and almost a partnership, maybe a somewhat strained partnership from time to time, but with developers. It's what Waterfront Toronto has established as a model process is to be replicated across the city. It is truly an inspiring, balanced, beautiful, integrative. And I've got to say, in terms of income, one of the things I haven't heard much about is we spend $1 billion renaturalizing this river. We have the choice about having a Venice of a Keating Channel, a Venice Canal, or a sewage canal with elevated highways still. Which one will tourists come to say, you've got to see what Toronto did? It kept its elevated highway beside a renaturalized river that it spent $1 billion on. Or will they come to see a Venice Canal, a renaturalized river, and balanced development that includes parkland and included the community throughout the whole process?
So if I went down there right now, with a ramp where the hybrid would roughly put a ramp, I'm not likely to want to sip a flat white on the Keating Channel right now.
Nobody's mentioning the service road. So the visual, if you were going to be a developer developing your residential properties facing north on Keating Channel, not only do you have the elevated highway, you have the service road on ground level, and then you have the ramps. This is what we're going to do with what we fought to save from a I kind of would prefer a Ferris wheel and monorail, to be quite frank.
Thank you.
It's at least funner.
Okay. Any other
Now.
visiting councilors?